My summer vacation. Wait a minute. I was here, but other people came. So it was their vacation and it was my great delight. And I just want to share a little bit with it of it with you. It was the Main Street Vegan Academy New York City experience. And oh my gosh, did we have an experience? So, if you listen to the podcast much, you have heard me talk about Main Street Vegan Academy. We've been training vegan lifestyle coaches and educators since 2012. We started out in person, and then there was this pandemic and some other stuff happened, and we moved to Zoom, but we're still live and interactive and magnificent. And every couple of years, we take it to the next level and invite incoming students and graduates to come to New York like they used to do in the old days and have a party that lasts all weekend. So, our special keynoter Friday night was Renee King-Sonnen of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. She's been on the program, and we'll put that link in the show notes. And I really want to recommend again her book, which is Rowdy Girl Confessions of a Vegan Cattle Rancher. This is a page turner. This woman has had a life. You're going to love it. We had a vegan comic, Diana the Vegan, absolutely delightful because you know what? Sometimes we just need to laugh and we need to let go. And in all honesty, she got a little bit, speaking about rowdy girls, she got a little bit rowdy, a little bit randy. And I'm looking around thinking, oh my gosh, is this okay with the older people? Then I had a great big laugh because I was probably older than any of them and it was perfectly okay with me. Then we had a walking tour of Greenwich Village, a human and animal rights walking tour with Andrew Kirschner. We'll put him in the show notes too. And he is a longtime vegan animal activist, historian, and licensed tour guide. So when you come to New York City, find out what happened down there in Greenwich Village because so many of the liberties that so many of us enjoy started in that little bitty part of this little bitty island. Don't know why there is so much magic centered here, but there seems to be. Then let's see. It was dinner at Caravan of Dreams, lunch at PS Kitchen. Very cool restaurant. PS Kitchen is nonprofit. So anything above operating expenses goes to charitable causes, and they try to hire people who are formerly unhoused or formerly incarcerated. Plus, the food is divine. You know, we always got to get that in there as vegans. Then we got into the educational portions, and we had Dr. Matthew Halteman, who wrote Hungry Beautiful Animals. Again, he's been on the podcast, and he talked about making the vegan lifestyle hospitable and saying that what we are for is flourishing. We're for humans flourishing in good health and satisfaction and prosperity. We are for animals flourishing, doing what they came to Earth to do, and having the rewards and pleasures and joys that are meaningful to them. And of course, a flourishing of the earth. Then we had Ask the Dietitian with Marty Davy, MSRD, and she was telling such great stuff about Alzheimer's and vitamin D and things that even those of us who are absolute nerds about this stuff didn't know yet. We'll have her on the show in 2027. She can tell all you guys some of the stuff that she told us this weekend. And then Sunday morning, we had Dr. Milton Mills because he had been in town for Black Veg Fest, which also happened this weekend. You know your movement's doing something when you have two things happening in the same place in the same weekend. So it's kind of too bad when you can't go to everything, but it's kind of cool when there's a lot going on. So, Dr. Mills also went into depth about vitamin D. He is now recommending 5,000 international units of vitamin D daily. We're going to have him on in January when I do a podcast pod. January is going to be for the docs. So, new year, we will have some of your favorite physicians on, and we will have Dr. Mills and get all that info from him. And then, in addition to the fact that I made breakfast for 35 people and I'm still standing, oh, I'll tell you what we had. We had tofu scramble, we had oatmeal, and we had Rip's Big Bowl, which is a muesli, and then we had all these like fixins. So there were fresh blueberries and dried goji berries. There were walnuts. There was flax. There was wheat germ. There was maple syrup. There was just all kinds of cool stuff. And of course, we had some little vegan chocolate muffins because, gosh, it was vacation, right? And then we did have a panel. And on the panel was Reverend Dr. Kevin Jenkins. You can find him on Instagram at the Vegan Bourne, Bourne, like Jason Bourne from the movies, because Dr. Reverend Kevin Jenkins is a Seventh-day Adventist pastor, the fittest man you would ever want to meet. And I won't share his age because that's not polite. But oh my gosh, he'll be on the podcast next year and he'll probably tell his age. On the side, when he is not being a pastor, he is an executive and celebrity bodyguard. And oh my gosh, anybody that says the time comes when you're just not going to build muscles like you did, they're wrong. And anybody that says don't expect that you can build muscles too much on a vegan diet, they're really wrong. And also on that panel was one of our Main Street Vegan Academy graduates, as is Dr. Jenkins. He's a certified vegan lifestyle coach and educator through Main Street Vegan Academy, and Richard Rogers, who has done so many things in his life as an educator and entrepreneur, and now he is the brains behind the Philadelphia Veg Fest, which is one of the most vital and vibrant vegan festivals in the country. And also on the panel, you may be thinking, what, is she going to have a podcast today or what? Oh, yeah. And that's our other panelist. So why don't you just hang around, get yourself something nice and cool to drink. If where you are now is anything like what we've been having in New York City, you'll want that. And settle in for this episode of the Main Street Vegan Podcast. Hi, I am Victoria Moran, and you know what you're listening to. And now it is my absolute honor and pleasure to introduce to you our third panelist and somebody that I have grown to absolutely adore. I've only known her for what, a year maybe, but she is the real deal. She is beautiful inside and out. She is as talented as can be. She has a fascinating background. She was with Major League Baseball and with the NHL doing marketing for nearly 2 decades and has now been working for a 1 decade, I'm sorry, 1 decade doing the sports thing, and now two advocating for animals, children, and the planet. She serves on the board of the Little Bear Farm Sanctuary in Florida, where she recently produced Friends Not Food, a farcical sitcom pilot built on the radical idea that comedy can reach hearts and minds that lectures, documentaries, guilt, and earnest messaging sometimes cannot. She is Felicia Greenfield, actor, activist, drummer, and mom. Welcome, Felicia.
Hello.
Hey.
I am exhausted just listening to your rundown of the weekend, even though I was a small part of that. What you do incredible things. And as a matter of fact, if I may, I would like to start this just by thanking you for everything you do, and specifically everything you built on purpose, the Main Street Vegan Academy, the books, the podcast. Now I understand that it was 4 decades you have been proving that veganism can look like a normal, happy life and not just the protest sign and salad, which I had thought it was.
I
And,
love that protest sign and salad.
and plain pasta, pasta with oil. And thank you also for something that might not have been part of the original plan, by insisting this movement has room for people who aren't scientists or celebrities or doctors, or you're the last guest, as of now that you had on the podcast, this CEO of the American Vegan Society. You gave validation to many of us, including me, someone with a weird idea to point a camera at a silly pig and call it activism. And I think you call it incidental activism, and I love that too. So thank you for everything.
Thank you, Felicia. Well, you are going to be a celebrity because I have seen your pilot. You did get a recognition from the Chelsea Film Festival, and so your pilot was screened at a big theater in downtown. A whole bunch of us went. It was pretty packed that day. A lot of people were interested in seeing what you guys are doing with Friends Not Food. And I'm not just, wishing and hoping and thinking and praying. I am knowing from having seen this, from having spoken with you, that this is going to be a series. I don't know if it's going to be Netflix. I don't know if it's going to be, ABC. I don't know where it's going to be. I just know that Friends Not Food is going to be a thing that people watch. And when I heard your title, all I could think of is Friends, not food. I'm thinking big. There was a big show called Friends, and now it is time for there to be a big show called Friends Not Food, and it's
And
yours.
coincidentally, the main character, the fictional character, the writer gave her the name Rachel. I modified it to Rachel Carson, as we all know, the famous
Great.
scientist, but I didn't even click the friends thing.
Oh, that's so cool.
But let me also just say, I have no interest in being a celebrity whatsoever. I wound up taking the lead role in the pilot to save money. That was pretty much it. I knew I was going to be down there. We had to bring people down to Florida, which is where the sanctuary is for the filming. And it was just a whole lot cheaper to just do it myself. And
Yeah.
the character that is the most, not really acting. I was just, she's just the one that sort of takes you through to meet all the kooky characters, the four-legged residents of the sanctuary, and the humans that we cast.
Well, as you know, and I know because my listeners know, I've been trying to get this feature film Miss Liberty made for years and years, working hard on that still. We'll be talking about that some next year. But it's everything changes. Somebody could come along and say, yes, we want this, but we don't want you. Now, how could they not want you? But maybe they want somebody who's already famous. Okay, we go with the changes because we're in this for the animals. But I also would just kind of maybe plant the seed in you that it's great to be a celebrity because then people listen more.
I, that is the only reason I would ever want fame. I actually, to tie two things into what you just said, in June, I went to the sixth annual Hollywood Climate Summit, which is what it sounds like. I just can't believe it's been 6 years of many organizations trying to convince Hollywood to incorporate the idea of climate into the stories, not just disaster porn, not just dystopia, not just everything on fire, but making the storm of the year just Tuesday. So I was at the event and there were many wonderful speakers, and one was Maggie Baird, who is Billie Eilish's and Phineas's mother. And I think the funniest thing she said, and I don't remember exactly the context, but that the fact that she's been an animal activist for quite some time. She has a wonderful charitable organization based out of LA. And she said once her kids became known, people started listening to what she had to say. And I thought, oh, I got a couple kids. Let's see if we can make that happen. But that resonated with me. I said, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
only reason I would want to have someone's ear. Oh,
Yes. Well, it's the guru for me in that was John Pierre. Do you know JP? John Pierre? He is this cool, cool guy. I met him when he was 18 at a vegan potluck. He just graduated high school. My daughter was a toddler. And so we're running around in these complete different eras of our lives. But he knew already at 18 that he was going to be a personal trainer, an athletic trainer, and that he was going to give half of his time to working pro bono with survivors of domestic violence and with older adults. And he's been doing this all along. So he did that in Chicago. I don't know if it was 15 years, 20 years, whatever, all vegan, pushing the whole, vegan message. And then he got the idea that if he could go to LA and become the trainer for celebrities, people would listen to him more because he wanted to open a sanctuary and do more good work. So he did, and he had all kinds of celebrity clients. In fact, I think he still has them, and he still goes out there once a month. I know that Ellen DeGeneres was working with him for a long time, and she'd have him on the show like every couple of weeks when she had her talk show, and just a lot of them. He knows everybody, but he's so egoless that he says, "Oh, I hate it in LA." But that's where I need to go for the work. So that's what I'm going to do. So, yeah.
Maybe it's something else about veganism, when it makes you're no longer the central character. I've
Ooh.
done many things with this project and in general, way outside my comfort zone that I did not want to do because of the animals.
Yeah.
Um, cold calling is painful for me, and
Oh,
I've
yeah.
done a bit of it for the animals. So, yeah, it's I'm not the most important anymore. There are other
Oh, that's
people,
what.
others that can't speak up that we need to speak for them. That's, one of the many
Yeah.
things
Oh.
we say as vegans.
And you know what? If you play the leading role and it gets all kinds of Emmys and whatnot, and you do become famous, you will still have this beautiful golden heart and you'll still
Oh,
share exactly what you're saying today because you are the real
here's
deal. So
here's a
let's talk a little bit
one
about you and then about the project. So tell us your vegan story.
My vegan story. I was vegetarian off and on my whole life. I grew up in the 80s in the suburbs of Maryland with, no driver's license and no internet. And a mom who was a wonderful cook with the square meal for every dinner she made for us. It had to have the piece of meat. And so when I decided to not eat meat, I was kind of out of luck. So I officially full vegan when I was an adult, sorry, full vegetarian, could not go vegan. I knew better. I went to protests. I did all kinds of activism. Could not give up cheese. I have two daughters. They both went vegetarian on their own time. I never pushed them. I never asked them. Both when they were very young. And then when my younger daughter they came with me to protests. We wore shirts, activism shirts. And then my younger daughter was 7, my older one was 9. And one day she said, I am not going to eat anything from animals anymore. And I knew what that meant. And simultaneously, so proud of her. And I was also like, oh God, now I have to learn. Because it's one thing for me to eat salad and pasta, but they're growing girls. Fortunately, without intending to, I found a coach, chef that for a month would come over every Sunday and work with us and teach us. And my husband, who I thought was one of the fittest older men ever until I met Dr. Reverend
Jenkins,
Kevin Jenkins.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm glad my husband was there to see it. We're still talking about what an amazing man, what an
Yeah,
amazing.
quite a specimen.
But because my husband is so completely health, I would say obsessed, this gentleman who became our coach happened to be incredibly fit. And he was a wonderful role model to my husband. And he asked my husband, Nick, said, try it for a month. Let's all just do it for 1 month together. See how you feel. At the end of that month, all 4 of us, my girls, my husband and I, well, that's when we learned the difference between a vegan and whole food plant-based diet.
Mhm.
So he was all about he's vegan, but the diet and not having Coca-Cola and Oreos, which are vegan, very specific about whole foods, no shortcuts, make it as healthy and fresh and local as possible. So it's been 11 or 12 years. The whole family's done it together. And
Oh,
and because it was so difficult for me, it's the one thing in my life I am patient. with when it comes to someone. If
Mhm.
they're not a troll and they're not nasty and they do ask questions and they say they can't do it, I will be as patient as can be because I've been there. And I can also
Mhm.
argue it could be easy, but for me, I couldn't do it knowing what I knew. So that has really colored how my activism um, changed after that.
Yeah. 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 I looked a lot of slipping and sliding between vegetarian and vegan. And it finally, a little bit like your situation. I know your daughter, put her little small foot down, and that was the end of that. My daughter was born into this, but I was doing eggs and dairy when I was pregnant because, this is the 80s. I mean, it was just really scary. I mean, I knew a few people had had vegan kids, but I just wasn't there. But I knew I wanted to be, and I'd been vegan for periods of time, and I believed in it. I was just so confused, which I think a lot of people are. But once she was alive, and I looked down at her one day in her crib, and it's like this perfect, perfect little being fresh from heaven. I don't want her to grow up exploiting animals. And so I knew I had to be vegan if she was going to be vegan. And I mean, from the beginning, even though I was saying things like, well, if your friends are eating something and you want to eat it, I won't be. She's like, why would I want to hurt an animal? I mean, she was just like, what is wrong with you? And so it's just really a blessing to have these kids to help bring us up.
I think so. I will admit every once in a while I slip if I'm in an event. Once in a while, I will bite something that is not vegan, never meat, but no excuses whatsoever. But if my daughter is anywhere near me, and she sees, she will, I will get a tongue lashing. And I always say I
Mhm.
deserve it, but I try to explain to her more, 2/3 of her life she's been vegan. It's not hard at all for her. Sometimes I tell her I'm weak. Sometimes I'm just being, I know. Now I'm like, here come the haters. I know.
You
Once in a while,
know,
not
if
often, but it's very different when you lived your whole life eating absolutely anything you wanted. I never watched anything. So,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah. No, and veganism, that was one of the things that Matthew Halteman was talking about so eloquently this weekend, that veganism is always a process of going vegan. There's always a process of getting more aware of reverence for life, more aware of peacemaking. I mean, I remember when my husband and I were sure we were as vegan as you could be, with the shoes and the bags and the toothpaste and the every, but he had rugs, wool rugs that he had gotten on travels abroad because he used to do international law and traveled all over everywhere. And I knew they were wool, and it never even occurred to me to bring up not having them because they were so much a part of his life. And he, who became vegan because of meeting me and became vegan, long after I had been vegan, he said, we can't have these wool rugs. And I was, of course, happy about that. But it's funny how things work because in that case, that was how it was supposed to be. If I had said to him, see here, we have to get rid of these products of cruelty, and he still had but that was from the souk in Istanbul. But that's my memory. It wouldn't have been good. But for him to say, okay, we're done because they were his, it worked. And so, yeah, it's not, I know Bruce Friedrich is so good at talking about it's not about personal purity. It's about this whole bigger thing. And of course, these days, it's so easy with the food and everything. And so, I think most of us can be pretty pure most of the time. But that doesn't, we don't get a gold star for that. We're just
right,
supposed to be out doing the work.
right. I often tell people it's not about perfection. And boy, the times I've heard, oh, I can be vegan a little bit, but then I don't know, put dairy in my coffee and I ruined it. You didn't ruin it. You didn't ruin
No.
anything. And everyone has their line. And I understand why there's so much infighting in veganism, although I know you had a wonderful podcast about that because different lines, there's no such thing as perfect. And, we can talk, we can have a whole episode on feeding your dog, your rescue dog, meat, other animals.
Mhm.
That's, feeding your rescue dog medication that was tested on animals. I mean,
Yeah.
there will be a lot of different opinions. And I think it's
Well,
the intention. It's your intention.
and I think too, Felicia, and I'll bet you agree with this, it's about consciousness and intention because most people are just eating what's advertised or what they grew up on or what's on sale. And I certainly understand about what's on sale because every time I go to the grocery store these days, I am horrified. I mean, I'm absolutely horrified. I am feeding two people in their 70s. What about people with five or six kids and teenage boys? I don't know how they can afford it. So, that's an issue too. But most people just aren't thinking about where does it go? Where are the ripples? What was this piece of meat before it was wrapped in cellophane? And so I think when we start to think, then we're able to start making choices. And if we as vegans are interested, kind, patient, funny, and all that stuff, then I think a lot of people are going to listen and a lot of people are going to want to change.
I think that's my favorite way of being an advocate is just trying to be a good, happy, healthy example. I'll tell you one interesting other facet of my life that contributes to this is my girls and I have been going to rural Honduras for 10 years to build schools with another initiative. And when we are down there, it's, the kids don't have shoes, no one has electricity. It's as poor can be. They subsist on rice and beans and fruits and vegetables they grow themselves and probably the eggs from their chickens. But for the most part, they're as poor as can be, and they eat well and they eat inexpensively, and it is plenty of protein in your rice and beans. They get a nice balance. So when I hear
Yeah.
people who don't know complaining about how expensive, well, that's because you're getting into the expensive stuff and the alternative meat, and there's a place for that. But also, I think this, like you said before, we have been advertised to with the needing pork and you need milk to be strong, and to this day, feeding my family dinner, it feels weird not having a piece of meat. It feels weird, even though I never really liked meat and I don't do it, and we know why, and it would be weird for my kids to get it. I was so trained to have your square meal with your balance,
Mhm.
just like the
Mhm.
picture. They really have all gotten to us.
Yeah, yeah,
We
that
have to
picture
break
is
through.
drilled. And
Gosh,
it's so funny because you're like way younger than me, but you got the picture. I mean, the dishes were probably different and the napkin was different, but it's the meat, it's the starchy veggie, it's the non-starchy veggie, it's the glass of milk. It's the same picture that I got in the 50s. And it's so interesting. We allow everything else to change. We went from black and white to color, and we went from, um, just different ways of seeing life and doing life and allowing for things. But that meat is still there. And the interesting thing I think with vegans is we eat so many meals in bowls. Have you noticed that? That plate, it's sometimes there, but the plate doesn't do it for vegan food the way the bowl does.
yes, and my gosh, the varieties. I mean, I thought I love tofu scramble, and just this past weekend, now I make scramble with pepitas, which is just pepitas and water. My husband's like, "What is that?" And I said, "Well, a quarter," because he's all about numbers and fitness, a quarter
Yes.
cup, no, half a cup of pepitas. My dish right here, this is 20 grams of protein, and it's just
Yeah,
pepitas and water. And he's like, "How did you come up with that?" I'm like, there's so many things you can do when you get that the brainwashed picture out of your head. Um,
exactly.
yes, and
And
rice and beans
pepitas, for anybody that doesn't know, those pumpkin seeds, and they're also super high in zinc. They're the
and
highest plant.
magnesium.
source of zinc, magnesium too. See, we're so lucky. We get so much good stuff while we're just chowing down, having fun. So we're thrilled that you are vegan and that you have this beautiful vegan family, and certainly that you do all this amazing human rights work. But now let's talk about the guys behind you and Friends Not Food.
Yes, that is Elsie Mae, and this is Anne, and they are just two of the residents at Little Bear Sanctuary, which is in Punta Gorda, Florida, just outside of Fort Myers on the Gulf Coast. Although I'm based in New York, it's a story for another time how we wound up spending a lot of time down there. So I have been on the board of Little Bear for about 6 years now, and I remember when Chris, who I've known Chris since before he started the sanctuary, and he asked if I would join the board, and I said about 6 years ago, I said, well, I would be happy to, but I'm going to tell you now, I don't have much to offer because all of my friends are in nonprofit and they're actors, so no one has money. I said, my marketing background ended before apps were a thing. So I really don't know. And then a couple years later, we were just a bunch of coincidences all at once. And the president of the board at that time, we were talking about using things that you really like or skills you might have, think in a different way about how to raise fund, how to make money for the sanctuary. And I said, well, I'm an actor, and down here it's so quiet. What a great place. Up in New York, anytime you film, wherever you're filming, you're going to hold for sound. There's a taxi, there's a siren, there's an airplane, hold for sound. You're always holding this sanctuary. We should shoot something here. Oh, these guys are so funny. There was a time, I think I told this anecdote at your event this weekend. He has a donkey named Zeke, and my daughter and I were playing, and we made up hide and Zeke, and we would just hide, and Zeke would come find us. And I have this video of him just turning around the corner. We were hiding somewhere and finding us, and it was just the most adorable, pure, like fully connecting. Like he is Zeke is a personality. He is a someone, not a something. And why don't people see this? And why can't I share this? And everything just all at once. We should film a comedy here and not use the animals, just have the animals be themselves. They live here, not make them do anything. Let's bring some actors who can improv, and let me find a funny writer who is not of the animal world, so we can really target the non or the pre-vegans, as a lot of people like to call them. And not another documentary, as wonderful as they are. Let me try something totally different. And the ideas just kept coming. And I thought, bark mitzvahs are funny. Let's have a bark mitzvah here. Although, I guess, spoiler alert for the pilot. And it just happened. Everything fell in place. I kept saying yes, and things kept happening. And funding fell through, but we were already had started. And my husband and I said, this is an investment it's our investment in saving animals, in climate. That's all, again, that's a whole year of episodes, is how animal agriculture is connected to climate. It's amazing how many people don't realize that, even in the animal world, don't make that connection. But if we can get this into a series, and people, especially the non-vegans, can watch these animals week after week and see their personalities and how they are individuals, and put in some jokes here and there about animal agriculture and make fun of vegans. Do what we have to do in a very different way to get a very different audience. Maybe that's something. And here I thought this was my own brilliant idea out of nowhere. I then went on to find out, after we produced it, it's a thing. So Cli-Fi, climate fiction, is a genre now. And I went to the 6th annual Hollywood Climate Summit. There are multiple organizations promoting climate in regular climate, and not the disasters, just incorporating that into storylines because it's so much a part of our everyday life. And I learned narrative transportation is a thing, and that is that when someone is so invested into a story, their defenses are down and messages can seep in. So instead of lecturing, they'll get the message, and or figure it out themselves. It's like I love the idea of the Socratic questioning, a Socratic method of activism. Instead of telling people, you ask them questions and have them figure it out themselves. And this was just a very
Yeah.
gentle, I used my two favorite words, and ostensibly vapid comedy is what I wanted. Just you go for the laughs and maybe get some, you really start to think about things a little bit differently. That's the plan.
Oh, that is so cool. And it is utterly delightful. But I have to ask you about one of the characters. You've got a pretty big Nickelodeon guy. You've got superhero Cooper Barnes in your pilot. How did that happen? How'd you get him? Is he vegan? Give us the scoop.
We love Cooper Barnes, and that's another long story, but it's a little bit important that I have been very involved, co-creator of another animal initiative. Oh, I think we started in 2015. Um, Someone else in the casting director, we discovered at an audition that we both were doing a lot of initiatives to help companion animals, dogs, cats, and bunnies. We were encouraging the rescuing, adopting, and fostering instead of puppy mills or the pet stores. And we bonded over there's so much negativity. What will be a way to make it fun? So we came up with this whole campaign for several years, Rescue Men, where we featured all kinds of men from all different ethnicities and ages and careers and that had adopted, rescued, or fostered. And we did calendar shoot with them, and we did a social media campaign. And then our last year, we're like, let's go Rescue Men USA. We had a few people in LA, and my family, we were huge fans of Henry Danger, which was the show on for 7 years on Nickelodeon with Cooper Barnes. And for that project, I just started hounding him on social media. I found out he had a rescue cat, so named Fonzie. And eventually he just responded. And we went to his home and filmed his cat, shot, I hate saying shot, we took photos of him and Fonzie. And then we did some videos, and he was beyond delightful. And then when I've just loved following him because he is one, I say the ultimate superhero. He really uses his powers for good. I love that he always says he speaks his truth on social media, and especially when he was with Nickelodeon. And I was beyond impressed that he said things that I was surprised he was able to with Nickelodeon. I never asked, I never questioned, I was just grateful. And then when this came up, he said yes. And it's a cameo, and he's just delightful. Although he plays a character that hates animals, which is just awesome because he's so the opposite of that.
Oh, that's so fun. I love the stories behind the stories. So I know that right now you're looking for a network. You're looking for a streaming home for this fabulous sitcom that everybody is going to love, but you have to get from here to them. So who's your perfect partner? What are you looking for?
My plan was that in existence was a programming director of Hulu that's vegan. Like that's all I need to find, someone like that. Yeah, it's not that easy. And it's been really educational. I've tried so many different ways, but as I am doing this, I'm also still promoting the concept of veganism in fun, silly ways. But at this point, we really need a door opened for us. We need a champion, whether it's a vegan celebrity, whether it's someone at a network or a streaming service, or a producer along the lines of the group that did Don't Look Up. I always call this the Don't Look Up Gambit. That's kind of what we went on. But
Uh-huh.
understandably, this industry is saturated. And but what I'm going to persevere because there are no Cli-Fi comedies out there that I know of. And this is what they're asking for.
Hmm.
This is what needs to be there. And there is support. I just a little bit difficult being a first time producer without any connections or champions, but one will arise. Or we will.
They will, and something we're very good at Main Street Vegan. And if you're all hearing my dog snoring, that's what it is. That is Chihuahua snoring. But something that I haven't told you yet, One of our Main Street Vegan Academy graduates said to me, I have someone for Felicia, somebody out in LA, deeply involved in the industry. And again, you never know. This may be one of the 43 you have to go through, but it's certainly one more, and it could be the one. So after we talk, I'll let you know about that and put you in touch with her. So
Thank
on we
you.
go. We rise by lifting one another up.
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually, related to that, one of the pieces that I love of this project is from the beginning, I brought on partners. We have a few different musical vegan musicians that allowed me to use their original songs that they performed.
Ooh.
We have some one of the characters always wore a graphic tee with some type of saying because you have to have that. And the company, the apparel company, gave us all of the product. We
Oh,
we have a bunch of partners because in addition to it helping us, I want to share the love among every type of person that
of
is
course.
working towards a more vegan world because we all, like you said, we all need to help each other. And
Yeah.
that would be such a, even make things even better to help other people.
Yeah, yeah. I am just thrilled for you and for what this is going to do for the animals. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I know we're winding down a little bit. Before we go, I do want to do a shout out to our sponsor, and that is Compliment, lovecompliment.com. These are super clean, super lovely supplements made by vegans for vegans. They're specifically designed for people who eat a really good diet, a whole food plant-based diet. So they're not hitting you over the head with ultra million milligrams of everything because that's not what you need if you're eating beautifully. But everybody needs a little help, and that's what Complement is all about. So if you go to lovecompliment.com and use Main Street, all in caps, is your discount code, you will get 10% off, not just on your first order, but forever and ever because I am grandmothered in. So do take a look. Take a look at the wonderful multi and the protein powders are so good and clean, and they now have this wonderful supplement called sulfora, which is the sulforaphane that we get from broccoli. But if you're not eating broccoli every day, or if you're not letting it sit out for half an hour or serving it with mustard, like Dr. Greger tells us, we're not getting all the sulforaphane. So, that's a supplement that I take the little capsule apart and put it in my smoothie in the morning. Don't even know it's there, except that I know I am becoming more and more of a superhero by the day, which is what we want to do because that's what is called for. And I also want to send everybody, if I may, to the website mainstreetvegan.com. That is where you can find all about Main Street Vegan Academy, our 39th cohort training and certifying vegan lifestyle coaches, educators, and entrepreneurs is happening this fall. We are on Zoom Saturdays and Sundays during October and November, 8 Saturdays and Sundays. If you have to miss one or some, they are recorded. But what's really special is when it's not recorded, when you're really there having a life experience. As I was talking about Felicia earlier and saying she used to be in Major League Baseball, I always think about the difference between watching that baseball game and seeing the home run and actually being there. And that's what we offer at Main Street Vegan Academy. Even when we're on Zoom and not in 3 dimensions, you're still there. You are known and you are important. And I think that's why our graduates on 6 continents are doing so much to change the world. And in addition, when you go to mainstreetvegan.com, you can click on podcast, and that's where you will find the show notes with all of the information about Felicia and Friends Not Food. So, Felicia, what's next? What's up? What are you doing?
I am promoting Friends Not Food.
And
Um,
what does your life look like? Just tell us about, I mean, people are fascinated by other people's lives. So you're a mom, you're busy, you're in New York City, which is a different way to live. I'm not from here. I mean, I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. Most of my listeners know that. I've been here for 26 years, so I've been here a while. But New York is one of those places, and I know there are others around the country and around the world as well, that aren't just where you live, they're like a character in your life. So the idea that if it snows, you're in the snow, and if it rains, you're in the rain, and all these things that most people are kind of, well, it was raining, but I was in my car. We're kind of out in the weather, and all these interesting things happen here. So just tell us about your life because I want to know, and I'll bet other people do too.
I love hearing about other people's lives. Mine, not so much. I'm mostly an actor, but ever since COVID and then the strikes, it's been difficult. So I'm spending a lot of time promoting this Friends Not Food in all kinds of ways. Interestingly, exactly a year ago, I started playing. Well, I had taught myself over COVID, but I started performing as a drummer in rock cover bands at the Bitter End, which is the oldest rock club in New York City. And I think if I still lived in the suburbs of Maryland, I would not have started that. And what was really cool is my last performance a few months ago. My daughter, the vegan, she played with us and she played guitar. That was her first live performance. So that
Wow.
was surreal. So being up there with her and I mean, being, in my 50s playing the drums was, something I wanted to do as a kid. The other interesting thing for about, God, 6 or 7 years now, every Sunday I meet a friend of mine who happens to be vegan in Queens, and we have coffee in Spanish because I've been trying to learn forever. So that's again, just I love it. Jackson Heights is, I think it's the city or the city with the most like 200
Hmm.
culture ethnicities. I don't
Languages.
know. Yes,
Yeah,
200.
I've heard Queens, I think, has
Queens is
like,
the world's borough, is what they call it.
yes,
And I
yes.
love just walking like the 3 blocks from the subway to where we have coffee. I pat one street, it's all Indian restaurants. One street, it's all Nepalese. It is just, I will never get tired of that. I've been in the city 31 years, and I still, when I was at your event, I had never been on that street before in New York City, and I was just tickled by that. I can't get enough of this city. So what I do is try new things. I like to always try new things.
Yeah. Oh, that's so wonderful. So tell us where we can find you and the pilot.
Sure. Friendsnotfood.tv is the website, tells you all about it. Picture of Cooper Barnes, the trailer, and our partners are listed. The musicians are amazing. And then Instagram is our main social media hub. It's Friends Not Food Sitcom on Instagram.
Well, let's all go follow everywhere and check everything out because we're behind you on this. I think I'm speaking for anybody listening who's vegan or on the vegan path and who really has an understanding that our fellow creatures are supposed to be our friends because we're all in this together. Thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
for shining your light and for doing this amazing project.
Thank you. And I always say being vegan is you are an advocate, you are an ambassador, and it's an obligation, but it's also an opportunity.
It is indeed. So thank you, Felicia,
Thank
and
you.
thank you for listening. So, what are we going to do? What do you say we go out and make Main Street vegan?